All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Long Distance Lounge. My name's Tim Sweeney, and I am excited to welcome this week someone whose work I have admired for quite a while. Her name is Nicole McLaughlin. She's a designer, also a digital creator, I guess you'd say. She started her career at Reebok before she struck out on her own as an upcycling pioneer. There's no other way to say it, really. She's a pioneer in this space, really breaking the mold with the work that she is doing. Today, Nicole puts on workshops. She's done TED Talk type things on YouTube. She's collaborating with big brands on product design. She's collaborated with brands across the spectrum. She's an ambassador for Arc'teryx, but she's also worked with Adidas, with Hoka, Merrell, Puma, and many more. And then you have her social media where she thrills 800,000 plus followers on Instagram and I think another 200,000 or so on TikTok who can't wait to see whatever wild creation she comes up with next. We're going to talk about how her childhood shaped her career track, the wild moment she had at work that led to her deciding to make a go of it on her own, which is really quite a story. And we'll touch on the tools she has in her Colorado studio, from sewing machines to something that revolves around sails and sailboats. And then we'll also talk a little bit about what it means to make or let creativity happen. This is going to be a fun one. Nicole is a super creative person, and she's also a very nice person to chat with. So without further ado, let's get straight to it with Nicole McLaughlin. Well, hello, Nicole. Thank you for joining me here in the Long Distance Lounge. First of all, do you have a cocktail for the Long Distance Lounge today? Is there something special? And it's daytime, so don't give it away.
I have a iced coffee.
All right, okay.
With a little milk in it.
It's fairly morning time where you are. So
yeah,
I only have water, so
okay. Well,
nothing extravagant.
Maybe after this call it'll probably be like noon at least. So maybe then I can start.
It's acceptable.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say I will drive you to drink, so I don't want that to be the case. But thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining me. I've been really interested to chat with you, so I appreciate the time. I've been following you, like a lot of the world, on social media because I worked in the outdoor industry, and you've kind of, I guess, crossed over into that world. So first of all, I want to spend the bulk of our time on kind of how you create and what you create in that process, because I think it'll be fascinating. But quick backstory: you grew up in New Jersey, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
College in Pennsylvania. Now you spend the bulk of your time in Colorado. Is that near Boulder, or you bounce around? Where are you today?
Yeah. So you got it. New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I lived in Boston for a little bit. I was in New York for a little bit, but now I pretty much am full-time in Boulder. I still have a studio in New York, so I do kind of bounce between the two. But if I'm calling something home right now, it's Boulder.
Okay. Well, pretty good place to call home.
Yeah,
I lived out there for a bit, and I grew up near Boston. So,
amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Obvious first question is, were you always a creator? I'm sure you got this a lot, but because I was thinking back as I was prepping for this, and as a kid, I was like the lunatic in the neighborhood who was like building BMX tracks, jumping over pits of fire, all this crazy stuff. I even built a miniature golf course in the woods and started charging kids in that neighborhood. My mother was just shaking her head, but then I guess grew out of it, so to speak. Were you one of these kids who was just always creating things? I know you are kind of like a combo of your parents' professions, right? Which is wild. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I'm definitely a product of my parents. Like my mom's an interior designer for commercial spaces. And then my dad, he was a carpenter, and then he's now a mall manager. So, but it's kind of cool because like they were always really supported and like encouraging me to make stuff. And I definitely was always a creative kid. I also, similar to you, I guess, I was very entrepreneurial. Like I was always trying to make a business out of things.
Right.
And so I liked the idea of like running a business, making money. Like I was very tapped into that at an early age. I had made a lemonade stand, but it was not just like a little kid's lemonade stand. I had my dad build me out like the whole setup with the wood, and my mom helped me with like the tablecloth. Like I was really going after it. But I was always making
It's a competitive advantage over the other kids in the neighborhood.
Listen,
having dad build you a stand.
Exactly. I was the monopoly. So I definitely like, I always kinda had that spark in me, I think, and then at one of my business ventures that I had in elementary school, I was making Barbie clothes and Bratz doll clothes, and I would do that just, like, with, like, cloth, and I would cut it, and I don't know, it's just there's a lot of, like, signs early on that led
Mhm.
me kind of now to what I do today. But once I got to, like, high school, that's really when I got into more, like, video photography. I was doing a lot of, like, sign language at the time, and I would
Oh,
make
wow.
videos of myself signing and put them on YouTube, and, like,
Mhm.
I then realized, like, okay, I like this path of, like, photography and making things, and it kinda just all culminated into what I do now.
Yeah, I mean, truly, I mean, made your sort of childhood passion your career. It's interesting too, talking about making YouTube videos and stuff because you're a young lady, fair bit younger than me, let's say anyway. And so you kind of grew up with that world of like YouTube and creating things and being parents probably filming you on their phones and stuff like that. It's a different world, isn't it, than I guess not long before that when I grew up, which was not the case at all. And kids are comfortable kind
Yeah,
of
I
creating
I
in.
kind of feel like I sit in a sweet spot because, like, the like, phones and cameras and things became a lot more accessible, but, like, my mom did have, like, a film camera when I was, like,
Mhm.
young, so a lot of, like, my, like, little kid pictures are still, like, analog, and then it kinda switched
VHS
gears
stuff, yeah.
yeah, and then well, and the sad part is there was, like, a part of my life where it's, like, people like, hadn't figured out the technology and, like, you USB and, like, micro SD chips, like, all those things, like, kind of people didn't take care of them or, like, transfer photos off of them, so I feel like there was a chunk of, like, maybe late elementary school to, like, early high school where it was kinda just wiped. I, like, don't
Right.
have any pictures at all.
They
Um,
they they
but
took it and never put it anywhere. Yeah.
yeah, it was just,
Yeah.
like, they, like, didn't know how to, like, put it on the computer, so they just, like, threw it out.
Right. So you go off to school, and that your major was at photography, visual arts, I think. So that's a different space than me as a writing major.
Yeah.
Is that the degree you would get today to do what you do? Because I guess at some point you go from photography, visual stuff to like creating, would you say, 3D tangible things?
Mhm.
Is that what you would study today to do what you do for the younger people who I
Um
know will listen looking for advice from you?
I probably if I knew this would be the career I'd go into, I probably would have done it differently in
Yeah.
terms of, like, schooling. I wouldn't change anything because 'cause I'm happy with what happened, but I think because I didn't do any type of fashion design, I didn't learn how to sew in college. It was well, I originally went for speech language pathology because I
Okay.
thought I was going to pursue sign language, and that's when I kinda realized I was like, "Oh, I'm into this more for, like, the visual art kinda
Yeah.
aspect of it, and then so I switched to, like, a photography and more of, like, digital media background. The nice thing about my education was that my college, it was a super small school, it didn't really have much of a program, but they had I think they had gotten some type of grant where they had, like, amazing equipment, and nobody was using it, and there was only, like,
Oh,
10 or
nice.
12 people in my major, so I had, like, a ton of access to the programs, like Photoshop, Illustrator, and photography, and I think, like, just being well-rounded kind of helped me explore all different types of things, and it helped me a lot. So, I'd say if I was to go back and do it, like, maybe I would have gone to an art school, but I almost feel like leaving it a little bit more broad and
Right.
open and
Yep.
not so specific led me to kind of exploring different types of mediums.
So where do you, I guess, out of school, is that when you start working for Reebok, or how long after when kind of everything shifts for you?
Immediately after college, so I had been my senior year, like last semester, I had been applying to like everything. I was like, I need a job. I need to
Yeah.
like, I knew I wanted to go somewhere else. Like I wanted to continue like learning and exploring and not that I don't love my parents, but I was like, I don't want to move home. Like
Mhm.
I just want to go and figure it out. And it was like 2 or 3 days before my graduation, I got a call from Reebok, and I had applied for this, it was an apprenticeship, so it was, like, a little more than an internship,
Right.
like, it was paid. They had, like they would offer, like, a stipend to move you to Boston, so it was like, "Oh, this is a big deal."
Mm.
I totally forgot I even, like, applied to it because it had been so long, and they reached out to me, and they're like, "Are you still interested in this? Would you wanna, like, put together a portfolio and apply for this, position?" And I was so excited and also so nervous because I didn't go to like a traditional art school, so I didn't
Hmm.
have any type of like real portfolio to show.
Yeah.
I included a t-shirt that I made for my major's bar crawl in
Okay.
the portfolio.
Those
And
are
they were
the
like, we like this. I was like, oh, okay, perfect.
nice. Those are the most creative moments.
Yeah, right. I was like, I just so happened to have this like bar crawl t-shirt that I made,
Mm,
but I had no idea what I was about to be going into. I thought I was doing like graphics for their social media or their website. Like I didn't realize that I was going there and doing graphics for clothing.
okay.
And so I got there and I was like, oh wow, this is a whole world I don't know anything about. I was immediately like our first day there, they had us like they were teaching us how to do tech packs, like how to basically communicate with a factory of like the measurements of a
Oh wow.
graphic
Okay.
on a t-shirt. And like this again, like I was like, what am I doing here? And this is like a year long thing. I was just happy to be there. And it was like it kind of was the perfect situation because it was like I was still kind of this college, fresh out of college, young person, but wanted to like get into the real world. And it was almost this like buffer phase where it was like, I can make mistakes. It's
Hmm.
okay if I make mistakes, but also like there's a lot of responsibility. I'm getting paid to be there. Like it was like the perfect
Yeah.
like position for me. And
Yeah.
I took every moment and soaked it in and I worked. That was probably the hardest year I worked in my entire life. Like I busted my
Yeah.
butt.
Well, a door opens, you walk through it, right, and learn it as you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a similar experience straight out of college, where I was a journalist in Colorado, and I had done sports writing, and that's it. Covering high
Mhm.
school and college sports for in college, and then they had me covering town politics, and I was lost. It's still
Yeah.
the hardest job I've had, I think, because I was 22, and in that day, you put it in print, and then it lives there. There's no like fixing it on the internet afterwards. So, man, I was sleepless nights a lot of times, worried like, what did I do? But I guess you're as you say, and that seems like a theme with you is like just learn it, worry about it, and be eager to make mistakes and move past it.
For sure.
So the big moment, because I watched the presentation, a YouTube talk you did, Figma, is that what
Mhm.
it's called? Yeah,
Yep.
really interesting. Kind of something, I don't want to say it falls in your lap because there's a bunch of discarded items. Basically, this is kind of like a pivotal moment for you that you kind of notice in the corner, or so to speak, and just start playing with or pilfering
Yeah.
and taking home. Tell us about that a little bit, because I mean, people follow you on social media. You're doing stuff today, but this is like a huge moment for you. Kind of how I guess it clicks, right, in a way.
Yeah, for sure. So while I was at Reebok, I always did graphic design. Like I wasn't creating apparel or creating footwear, but I was around it so much. So I was pretty curious about it. And then I also was able to go on some factory trips, which was super cool. And I think just having the experience of like seeing a factory line, kind of seeing how things were made, I was like, okay, what if I tried to make this? I think
Mhm.
there's something there that could be cool. Like if I try to explore it, whatever. And so that's what I did. And like you said, there was a bunch of just material boxes everywhere. And I think I was just like, okay, well, it's going to get thrown out. So I might as well try to rummage through and maybe I could take some stuff and try to use it for something. And this is where I do feel like my parents in this way, because my mom always is like rummaging. Like if people leave like furniture out on the street, she brings it home. My dad like fixes it up. And so I kind
Oh,
of feel
okay.
like I got that from them. And so it was more just like, well, I don't really have a plan, but I'll try to figure it out. And I just started to make things in my bedroom. At the time I was living in Boston, I had 3 roommates and I was just in my like little bedroom trying to make shoes with like hot glue, and I would staple clothes and try to figure things out. And it was really rough for a long time, maybe like couple like 5 or 6 months of just like making stuff on the nights and weekends, and it looked bad, like it looked really bad. But every once in a while something would happen where I'm like, oh wait, I kind of see something's happening here. Like
Yeah.
I'm starting to see things that I haven't seen before. And because I was making these super weird, like prototype shoes that were like overbuilt, kind of like really experimental with different materials. And I started to use things that were in my house. Like I would take like my roommates, if they had like recycling or something, I would take like whatever water bottles or this and that and use it as like a high heel. And
Mhm.
eventually I was kind of like, okay, these are kind of looking good, like good enough
Right.
for me to share on the internet.
So, but
And
this is like art in a way that you're making, right? Like, it's not like you're not bringing it into work to the bosses at
no.
Reebok, like, hey, we should make a shoe like this. This will
No, no,
change
no.
them.
They didn't know anything about this. They were, like, totally, like, unaware that I
Yeah.
was doing this. Also, as a side note, so during this time, Reebok moved offices. They were originally in this huge kind of office park building, in Canton,
I know where it is.
Massachusetts.
There's a brewery there now.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
office. It was so cool, like, especially
Yeah.
because that was the office I started working in. It was, like, I kinda just felt like I made it. I was in, like, a campus type
Oh
of thing,
yeah.
like,
It was something. They
it
had
was really
all
cool.
the
They had,
gyms and
like
fields and yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was super
Beautiful.
cool. They had a basketball court, like, in the middle of the
Yep.
office, so, but they moved from that big office to, like, a more sleek, kind of modern city office in the Seaport district, and
Yep.
so but it was a kind of a slow move, like, over time, people would, like they would, "Okay, this team moves, now this team moves," but
Right.
my key card still worked, and so I'd go back to the office on, like
Oh,
during
okay.
over the weekend, and there was no one in the office anymore, but there was just stuff from, like, years and years and years, and there was this one guy, his name's Paul Smith, and he had this desk that was kinda near me, and he had worked at the company for, like, I wanna say 20 years or something, and he had, like, relics and just things that he took a lot of it, but there were certain things he just, like, was like, "Ah, I don't need this," and left it,
hmm
and I was just collecting, like I was
hmm
just dumpster diving, like,
Yeah.
every weekend and finding all this like, cool stuff,
That's a
and
treasure trove to you, to someone like you, where he's just like, I worked on that 15 years ago. I
whatever.
don't
Yeah,
care. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that was, like I love treasure hunting, like, I love just, like,
Mhm.
the high and, like, the search, even, like, if you go to a thrift store, and so I just really enjoyed, like, looking through old, like, catalogs and that kinda stuff, and it at the same time too, Reebok has such an amazing archive, like, they're a really old brand, they started in 1895, one of, like, they were the first running shoe, they had, like, nails as track spikes on the shoes, like, there were so
Mhm.
many amazing, like, history moments within the brand, and that also while working there, like, I started to have, like, way more of an appreciation for history, and I think both of those things really led me to making these projects because in a way I was trying to, like, preserve all this stuff that was getting trashed, and then, it was also just more of like, okay, it's a creative endeavor. I have this day job of creating, but you're creating under someone else's lens and design
Mhm.
language, so these
Yeah.
projects were more for me, and
Right.
no one could tell me no type of
So
thing.
then, so then there's this moment which I think is hilarious that an agency comes into your company
Yeah.
and tells your company that they should be working with this young woman online who's doing crazy cool stuff on her Instagram, and it's you. And are you in the room when this happens, or it just filters back? You're in the room.
I'm in the room, yeah.
Okay, so is this like, are you like, am I in trouble, or are you excited, or both, or are you slinking down in your chair like,
I was
no?
kinda like, "Oh, no," like,
Yeah,
they found out about my
yeah,
moonlighting career.
yeah,
I mean, some of my coworkers and, like, friends knew I had been making these projects, but a lot of people didn't know, and at that point, I think I was already sort of feeling like I had been at Reebok then for, like, 3 years, and I was
okay,
looking for kind of the next thing
yeah,
anyway, and I was like, "I think I need to leave." Like, I think I need to go, like, pursue this, and because I at that point, I had been sharing my work pretty consistently online. It started to take off quite a bit, and I'd had a couple, like, articles and things come out, and I couldn't take any outside work because I was
right,
still working at the
right,
company, and it would have
yeah,
been, like, a conflict of interest, so
right,
eventually I was like, "All right, I guess I should just commit to it." I was also, like, 24 turning 25, I think, and so I was kinda like, what if I just quit?" Like,
now's the
I was like,
time,
"Now's the time."
yeah,
I
yeah,
had a little bit of, like, not much, but a little bit of a financial safety net of, like, savings, and I was like, I could at least last for, like, 5 months maybe, and
mhm.
then if this doesn't work out by the end of the year, I'll just apply for another job somewhere, and I'll figure it out. Like, that's always my mentality. I was like, "I'll just figure it out. I don't
Right.
know. I'll make it work somehow."
Yes, I wanted to ask about that because it's a, I mean, I know 100 people who talk about this. I want to leave my job. I have this idea, but a lot of cases I have a family, I have kids, and so you totally understand they're not going to just
Yeah.
leap because their spouse might leap as well when they hear that news. But do you like know where you're going to get your money from, and that like you're going to be a freelancer? But forgive me, I don't understand like fully know that design or fashion world. are you like, okay, I know I can do a collab with this company and they'll pay me X number of dollars and that'll get me through this? Or is it like my social media is getting really popular and people will do, like, I can do paid promotional posts? Like, what are you thinking back? This is not that long ago, right? So what's
Yeah.
the,
I
it's got to be
mean,
nerve wracking too, right?
it was super nerve-wracking. I had at that point, I had gotten, like, some loose inquiries of like,
Okay.
oh, we would like to, hire you to do like a project. And it wasn't anything crazy. I actually did, while I was still at Reebok, which was like kind of probably not like super chill, but it wasn't a competitor, but it was like, I knew I was sort of on the way out, but I
Right.
ended up doing a campaign for Depop, which is like a reselling website similar to eBay. And I was just like, they came and they filmed me like thrifting and kind of looking through clothes and like making stuff. And like, that was the first paid opportunity that I had. And I think I made like $500 from it.
Okay.
So I was like,
Yeah.
I don't think I could like
Yeah.
fully live off of this, but if I get enough of these things,
Yeah.
like maybe something could happen.
It's hard to live off of. It's hard to get enough of those though. The
Exactly. And so
$500 jobs don't keep you in business. Yeah.
exactly. And so, but
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, maybe if I like get like just put my head down and like do like get my name out there more and do these types of
Mhm.
things, like maybe word will spread. And then something kind of crazy happened. So I already had planned on leaving Reebok. I knew it was like May of 2019. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave, and I got reached out to teach a workshop
Oh,
for
nice.
Adidas, which was funny because at the time Adidas owned Reebok, and they were like, "We want to like bring you to Shanghai, and you can teach like a workshop." And meanwhile, I just learned how to sew. Like I am
Oh,
not like a
really?
proficient sewer at this point. Like I just kind of figured this all out. It was all still kind of new, but
So
I was like,
you learn that skill. I was going to ask you about that sewing, etc. I want to
"Yeah,
touch on
yeah."
that later on, but like what you the actual tools you use, but you didn't know how to sew. Like you learned in your 20s, basically.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh
I
wow.
learned,
Okay.
and the nice thing that I also really like leaned into was that Reebok had a maker's space. So they had like a lab there that had some sewing machines. Also, again, another situation where it was like this amazing thing that no one was using.
Right.
Like none of like my coworkers are going down there and making stuff. I mean, granted, everyone's really busy. However, I was like, it was the same thing at school where it was like they have all this photo equipment and no one's using it. So I was like, well,
Mm,
I'm gonna go use it. And so I taught myself most of my skills. I just was like learning on YouTube. I had a couple of friends and people to help me. My sister actually went to FIT in New York, and
right.
so
Okay.
she gave me some pointers. But
Mm,
yeah, I basically just learned how to sew like 6 months prior to me quitting,
wow.
and so I decided to then leave Reebok, and then my first real project was going to Adidas in Shanghai and teaching a sewing workshop, which was really complicated when I think about it because there was like a language barrier. I
Mhm.
also was like, I'm trying to teach an upcycling workshop. It was really, really intense, but it was so fun. And I just remember being like, I think I could do something here. Like this really feels like good. And the money was way better than the $500 from
Right.
the last project. So I was like, okay, if I do enough of these, then I'll be just fine, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So I guess if we fast forward a bit, you've collaborated with kind of everybody now because you start with Adidas, but I know Hoka, Merrill, Puma.
Hmm.
I don't want to, Hermes, is that
Yeah.
correct? I was just in Milan actually walking around and seeing these brand stores is just crazy.
Yeah.
You know this world, but just the presentation is just off the charts. But so Gucci, Super Bowl jacket, like, I mean, how did we get here? This is wild, right? And even in the outdoor space kind of became something, which is how I saw you. Obviously, I worked for Solomon in the outdoor world, and a lot of colleagues followed you, people who worked in sports style, and I worked a lot on sustainability. Part of my job, a huge part of my job, became communicating around sustainable projects. So I'm watching your stuff is really interesting to me because I saw it evolve from the brand side.
Hmm.
Um, so you become kind of this upcycling
Yeah.
expert or voice. How have you seen like brands work on that topic from your perspective? Are they doing what they say, or how does that influence your work as well?
Yeah. So, well, the nice thing about how I ended up being positioned. So because I came from corporate and I came from this, background of being inside of the sportswear company, when I decided to go off on my own, I sort of felt like this liaison between the big brand and, everyday person and kind of the communication that happens with sustainability. And I definitely have found brands using it more of like a marketing tool and
Hmm.
ways of just like, it's greenwashing. But then at the same time, I find that like the brands that I've been working with are actually there's a lot of amazing initiatives that they have. And a lot of the time it's done internally and they don't really talk about it to the outside. So that's sort of
100%.
like I'm always
100%
kind of
true.
like you guys are doing like such cool stuff, whether it's like packaging or the way that their factories are run, and like a lot of the times they're like, oh well, this isn't really that cool to like talk about, and I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, but I think it's worth highlighting in some way. And
It
so
is and it is to the people who care about it. That's the
for
thing,
sure,
right?
exactly,
That's
and so
the.
I think it's been more of a journey of, like, getting them to feel more confident to talk about it, but make it done in a cool way, in an interesting way, and then also, like, my position is to, like, come in with the brands, and a lot of the like, not every brand I work with has some type of amazing sustainability initiative, but that gives me an opportunity for me to come in and be like, "Okay, well, what can we do?" Like, let's start small,
Mhm.
maybe we introduce some type of take back program where like people can bring back their jackets or their shoes or whatever it is and they can get a discount, and then we try to find a way to use this, whether it's for like a workshop or if you are down to try to scale this into something bigger and make an upcycling line or something like that. And so I mean, talking about outdoor, so Arc'teryx and I have been working together for years now. So
Mhm.
I signed on as an ambassador with them in 2021. Still an ambassador.
Oh,
They're
nice.
the best brand. I love working with them, and they have such cool initiatives that they've been doing and kind of leading the way in a lot of spaces in terms of like repairs and
Mhm.
giving the consumer kind of more of an opportunity to create. It's more of like a relationship and more of a dialogue versus like you buy something from us, now you have to go figure out what to do with it when it doesn't work anymore. So
Mhm.
they have service stations where you can come in and get a zipper replaced or like a small hole patched, and then if it's so beyond repair, which to be honest, I never realized people wore their jackets. Like
Right.
I was kind of just, living in the city and stuff. Like I had a good rain jacket and that's all I needed. And then I moved out to Colorado and I was like, oh no, people like this is survival gear for
Yeah.
them.
And
So
they won't part with it either.
oh my
They have a
god, they
favorite one.
won't part
That's
with
it.
it. They like
Yeah.
they want they and the funniest part is like so now with Arc'teryx, they send me like a bunch of warranty jackets. So if your jacket is kind of beyond repair, like the consumer, they would send it back. They would
Okay.
get an exchange for a new discount for a new
Mhm.
jacket. And then sometimes I get sent boxes of all the old jackets to figure out projects and fun creative endeavors to use it for. But people find the funniest ways to like patch their own clothes, and I love it. It's like duct tape or like
Oh,
safety
yeah.
pins or this and that, and it's like you could just see the person was like, oh, I just need to get it through like one
Yeah.
more trip or whatever.
Yeah, well, duct tape goes back decades in the ski world. That's like it's
Yeah,
like a badge to have duct tape on your gloves, on your whatever, especially at certain ski resorts. Yeah, that
yeah.
Arc'teryx is. I know a few people in the building through Solomon and some of the athletes, so who I'm sure you've met, like Greg Hill and people who like
Oh
really
yeah,
live
legend.
this world. Oh yeah, he's a character and a legend, but who like live that. I mean, they live what they preach too. Guys
Yeah,
like Greg. So yeah, that's a good people to be partners with. And it's true what you said, because working on the brand side, I remember when we first at Solomon started like sort of looking for stories, we were kind of shocked because people were working on all this stuff who were product developers and the people who you wouldn't think who'd been there like 30 years or something. Solomon
mhm,
has some people who've been there forever, like true experts, creating stuff like in a lab down. I mean, they do have sewing machines and people who are making prototypes by hand, athletes tested, etc. It's like in the DNA of the company. But when we started asking, do you have stories that would fit around this? Because people want to hear about our athletes wanted to hear about it,
yeah,
especially people like Greg, who was working with Solomon and Arc'teryx at the time. And we were like, oh, there's a ton of stuff, but it's not their job to think about how it gets communicated. And there was a
mhm,
gap between what they were doing and what was like bubbling up to people like myself, whose job is to like figure out how to tell the stories. And it was scary too, because at the time we had no sustainability expert, and there is now, and she's fantastic. But you're right when you say like you don't know how to treat it and how to talk about it, and you're afraid you're going to get called out for things if you're on the brand side. But if
Yeah.
you're honest and you say like this is what we haven't figured out, but this is what we're working on, it I you expect a lot of negative feedback, and there wasn't a lot of that in my experience, which is what
I
maybe you've seen that at various brands.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it, because it's the companies that are like, we've got it all figured out, and then like they don't,
Yeah.
obviously, because it's like, how could you expect people to have this all figured out? This is a huge problem, and this has been going on for years and years and years. It's not, and like all of a sudden now, like these goals and initiatives like have been set, and it's not an overnight switch, and
Mhm.
it's unrealistic for anyone to think it's going to happen that way. However, it's like we need to hold people accountable. So if you're going to say, oh, by 2030, we're going to be this, we're going to be that, like,
Right.
I want to see, like, okay, in 2030, if you're not that, like, what are the steps at least that, like, how close have you gotten? And,
Hmm.
like, what can you share to everybody else? And I think that's the biggest takeaway. And the one thing that I will say, like, I won't shy away from brands that maybe haven't figured out all their sustainability goals yet, but I will not work with them if they're not willing to like collaborate or like share. If they figure out something that can help the rest of the industry, but then
Yeah.
they want to just keep it to themselves and they
Yeah.
don't want to like, let anyone else know like how helpful this is. That's where I draw the line. I'm
Hmm.
like, this is not something that we can kind of like own or take ownership over. Like, I know that's a whole conversation right now with like mono materials. So shoes that can be like, I know On Running's working on one. I know Adidas is working on one.
Yeah.
And it was like there's some competition between like who takes ownership over this type of material that can help the entire industry. A monomaterial is way easier to
Yeah.
completely deconstruct and turn into something new and make it circular, versus like a sneaker that has laces and footbed, outsole, midsole, like that have to be separated. So like the
Yeah.
closer we can get to a monomaterial shoe, it's like that's a huge win for our industry. So if someone has to take ownership over that, like that puts us all back. So
Right. Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I want to talk a bit about kind of the creative process for you, because I think there's there is a sort of courage it takes to throw stuff out there that is yours and original. And in your case, it's very original and different. So I read an article, you said that what people see in what you do is like your personality.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a bit and touch on that, like the courage of just like putting stuff out there? Because at the beginning, as you said, you probably, if you look back now, you probably go, "Oh God, that's frightening what I used to put out for
Oh
people to see."
yeah. Like terrifying, and just even making that first jump, and every project feels still like a little bit of a risk. Like, oh, is this a good idea in my own head? But also at the same time, like I think I've just learned to whether it's not for other people, it's for myself, but I choose to share it because people get enjoyment out of it or they get inspiration out of it. Like that's my favorite thing, is when like a young designer, someone is like, "Oh, I referenced this like piece of yours for my senior project." Like that makes me super happy. But yeah, every time it's vulnerable, and the what I said about my brain kind of being like, my projects are like a look inside of my
Hmm.
brain basically. And it's true, because like I see a lot of humor in things. I love to have fun, I love to laugh, and I like to be able to create work that feels like all those things.
Hmm.
And being able to, I think that's the, you've made it as a creator if you're able to take what's in your brain and make it physical in some way. I think that that's like the ultimate dream of a creative. And when that started to happen to me, I kind of just felt like this like amazing moment of like, I've kind of feel like I've made it as a creator.
Hmm.
Like I can communicate how I feel and make other people laugh and make other people have a good time. And so I don't know how it sort of happened. It did. And once I figured out that little unlock,
Hmm.
every project has just been like a way of me getting these ideas out. And I don't know. I try not to put too much pressure on myself to come up with the ideas. They just sort of happen. And when I'm not trying, of course, that's the best ones happen. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's true in all industries as people look at someone like you as there's I think 800,000 plus people following you, hanging on your every post. That's just on Instagram. And they probably think, "Oh, she was always this naturally talented." Right? People say that, but they don't see the grind over the
yeah.
years of all the things you did that or the stuff you throw away probably. And cuz I saw somewhere where you talked about kind of giving yourself grace or letting yourself fail. So do you have any advice? I know you do some workshops and stuff for young people or designers, maybe not just in design, but in creative space who are like, man, I'm never gonna be this or that. But I'm sure there were some years where you were like, I'm never gonna be this or that also.
Yeah, I mean, please, I every day, like, there's always some type of, like, failure or idea or, like, things that just, like, don't happen the way I thought they were going to, and also the material that I use is really unexpected too, where it's like, I think it's gonna do a certain thing, and then it does the opposite, and that's what happens when you try to put bread in a sewing machine, like, it's not usually going to work, so
Right.
you have to find different ways to make it work or a different method, so I think try not to put too much pressure on yourself. I also like I just have a graveyard of projects that never truly made it and I just instead of giving up on it, I have like put it to the side and I've come back on it like months later, years later and it was because at the time maybe I didn't have that certain skill set or I didn't have that tool that I now have and
Right.
I always find that like, okay, it happened at the time it was supposed to. Like I was able to, come up with this idea at that time, but perfect it at this time. Like you just have to
Right.
let those things happen. And then I think like for younger people, I always say, just let yourself have that time. Like don't force it. Don't like push yourself to make something that if it's not working, find a way to pivot and so
Mm.
that happens to me a ton where I'm like, oh, if I'm making a shoe and it's just not quite looking right, like, what if I turn it into a hat? And like I take it off my foot and I put it on my head. And like, I mean, it's harder, I guess, to do that if you're like designing digitally or doing photography. But I think when it comes to like making clothes, if it's not working as one thing, just try it as a different thing and see what happens, you know?
Yeah. On that note, I'm I'm curious if you can kind of take us through the creative process of one of the products you create for say Instagram or for social media because I guess to back up, you've created bras from croissants and headphones from coffee mugs and pumas from the I think it was discarded fabrics. I saw one thing from like oven mitts, which is incredible. So, what are like the actual tools? Your sewing machine, clearly.
Mhm.
Um, what else is in this studio that glues and different? What's in there? Because are you only working with your hands now? Are you doing design on a computer sometimes as well? And look, because that stuff seems to be different than say a collaboration with Hoka, where like that you still have to have functionality and performance is a huge
Mhm.
thing for these sports brands. So what's the difference? What's the process from one to another? And what's in that studio? A
Um,
lot of questions at once. Sorry, but it
no, you're good. I'm gonna try to remember all, but
yeah. Yeah.
this, I mean, the studio has like I've kind of it's taken a long time to get to this point, but it's sort of this place now where it has everything that I need. Like I really it's rare nowadays where I'm like, "Oh, I don't have that specific tool." And if I don't have it, it's usually because it's some type of like heavy machinery that I probably wouldn't like need that often. And so in that case, I usually take it home to my dad and he'll try to figure it out for me.
You have
My
built-in
dad
staff. This
my
is your
dad is
staff, man.
definitely on staff at this point. My mom also helps me come up with ideas sometimes. She's always like calling me. She's like, I thought of the best idea. I'm like, oh,
Ah,
here we go.
okay. Yeah.
But at the studio, I have so my sewing machines definitely are like the most used, but I have different types. I have like my single needle, I have a post bed machine, which is more for footwear. I also have these machines called Sailrite, and they are like meant to be on sailboats, which is really cool, but
Okay.
they go through really thick materials. You can do zigzag. They have like a leather working version, so it's pretty sweet. I do use some glues for like shoes and soles and that kind of stuff. I also use an industrial hot glue gun a lot. Like if I'm just trying to come up with an idea and if I'm not ready to like commit to it fully, I'll just use the hot glue gun just to like see it and kind of decide like, okay, is this good enough? Like before I glue that heel on there, like let me just stick it on there. And I use like Gorilla Glue for
Yep.
it. There's like they make like Gorilla Glue hot
Yep.
glue gun sticks,
Okay.
which is pretty great. I use a Dremel like really often. I find myself needing that a lot, and then I use a Sawzall pretty often as well because I take a lot of high heels apart, and I used to do it like by
Nice.
hand. The first heel I ever took apart, I remember I was in the driveway of my shared house in Boston at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was smashing it on
Oh,
the
perfect.
driveway trying to get it off, not realizing how heels are made, and they have like a full like iron bar that goes
Ah,
through them. So
see, I
like
didn't know that. Yeah.
it's way I was like, this makes sense. That's why like like they do last a long time, and it's very surprising when a heel breaks out from under you. But yeah, I've learned the hard way that it's like
Yeah.
not easy to take apart. And then sorry, I
No, just
I'll
kind of
not
the
remembering the
yeah,
rest.
no, sorry, I kind of repped it in one. It was a mistake. But the kind of process from something you create for social media versus something you're creating like for a brand. I know you said there's like functionality in some form or fashion to everything you do, but
Mhm.
yeah, do you approach that differently? Like you're making something that's like quirky and funny and like, it's like I said, like the croissant bra is like something you just come up with on a whim, or like what's the process there versus if you're collaborating with, say, a product designer at a running company?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, there's similar approaches. Like sometimes I have to go through like the wild and wacky ideas to get to the more like
Hmm.
commercial and wearable ideas. And I think now that I have done quite a bit of both, like it's a little bit easier to turn on that side of my brain. I think the thing that I always pitch with brands is like, let's come up with like, let's do prototyping. Like, let me do rapid prototyping. Send me similar process to like any other project where I'm like, send me like if you have samples or like leftover soles or whatever you have, send me a box of like weird stuff from your office. I'm gonna make like something really wild, like some type of prototype, and then from there we can kind of like whittle it down
Rein
and
me
like
in.
rein me in and like
Yeah.
not to a point where it doesn't still feel like me, but obviously like food on a shoe is not going to be something we could sell at like
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah.
So like for example, I did a collaboration with Hoka and I made this detachable like 4-in-1 gator.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Hoka hadn't done a gator before, which I was like, oh, this is like our perfect opportunity to explore this
Mm.
together. And so I actually made the original prototype I have. It was made of like a sleeve of a jacket.
Okay.
And it was an Arc'teryx jacket that I cut and I used like how there's like a little Velcro thing. That's what cinched it. And then I wanted it to be able to be worn in multiple ways. And that was like the biggest thing was like so you can just wear like the toe, kind of like the vamp cover, or just the heel kind of ankle cover, or them together or none of it. And
Yep.
so it was a little bit of a challenge, but I feel like I had made similar types of things within my work that's like modular, convertible, like being able to wear something multiple ways. But then this time I was like, okay, but this has to be like consumer ready, someone
Right.
that could actually do
Okay.
this like on the spot, you know?
Right. So that freedom to play, like for social, is then being like applied to like a real life project that's someone's going to use and
Hmm.
wear. I was talking with someone about this the other day. I can't remember who, how that kind of brief, like I hate it. Say I'm writing or concepting or something for a video for a brand. And it's like, I hate the idea of like no boundaries.
Hmm.
And this is something I learned over my career is like, you think at the beginning that do whatever is like such freedom, but in actuality, like the most creative stuff you come up with, I assume this is true for design as well, is like when you kind of are in a box, or maybe few the box is the material that
Hmm.
you've chosen to use, because then, yeah, even if it's, say for me, like writing or speaking something, someone's going to speak it on camera. It's like, we can say this, but we can't say this. We want to say this, but we can't say it this way. And that's when you come up with like clever ways to say things. And is it similar for you as a designer? Yeah.
Definitely. Super
Blank
similar.
canvas is a bit scary in a way,
It's
isn't it?
super scary. Well, in general, with upcycling, the reason I love it so much is because like I'm taking something that already exists and like transforming it or like retrofitting it into something else. Like whereas a giant roll of blank fabric scares the shit out of me. Sorry, I don't know how to say
Yeah,
that on
it's
this
fine.
one.
Yeah.
It really does. Like I get really overwhelmed. It's the same thing as like opening a new notebook and being like, oh, I have to like write down the
Feel
first thing
this.
or this. It's the
Yeah.
same. Everyone has that feeling,
Yeah.
but like I love the fact that when I start making a project, I'm starting at 50% through where I have to
Exactly.
try
Right.
to move things around and make it work. And so
Yeah.
I find so a lot of the time when I work with brands, if we're making a product that's being sold, like Puma is a great example, they're giving me material like this is the colors we already have. Like, sorry, you can't change the colors. Perfect. That's fine. I don't care. Like what
One less thing to
exactly. I'm like,
make a decision over.
let's make it
Yeah.
work with whatever you have available. And like if that's to me, that's a good product where it's like if you can make something cool or interesting or sellable, like based off of what's already existing, then like I think that's a good skill to be able to
Yeah.
have.
Do you believe in creative blocks? Because someone taught me a long time ago. This was for in a writing class, and it was like a free writing exercise, and I've used it for 20 years. Like when I'm trying to write even a press release or something,
Mhm.
and I just start writing anything, and it's funny how you'll look back and it's nothing like what you started with. But I might be like, I have nothing to say in this press release. Like I have no information to go on. I'm just going to write anything, and then the pieces sort of fall into place as you go. So I read somewhere that you use like outdoor time,
Mhm.
like running, trail running, things like that. You do a bit of climbing too at the
Mhm.
gym. Is
Yep.
that right?
Big
And
climber, yeah.
maybe that is the same for me because I'm super active and I just don't know that removes a creative block. So
Yeah.
do you believe in blocks or you have your ways to circumvent them?
I definitely believe I have blocks a lot of the time, but it's like I think I just do it to myself. Like I start to then overthink. Anytime I start to feel that feeling of like a creative block, it spirals and I need to be like, stop it. Like and
Yeah.
that's where I think exercise is huge for me, like getting just moving my body. And
Yeah.
even if it doesn't help it like come up with a new idea, at least it just makes me feel like productive. At
Yeah.
least that's
Right.
like oh, at least I went for a run, even though I didn't have any good ideas today. At least I like moved my body. So I think that's like number one. There's been like certain things over the years that I have found, like there's definitely points of the year that I kind of go into these creative lulls, and I don't know why. But there's also points of the year that I completely like rejuvenate, and
Hmm.
that's when I go home to New Jersey and I'm with my family. I think it's just like being in a space where I feel like safe and relaxed. And I think that's just the biggest thing is like being
Hmm.
relaxed and like letting myself just be a little lazy, be a little tired, like sleep in a little bit. And I have always come up with some of my best ideas when I'm back home in New Jersey and when I come back from like the new year. Like I usually start the new year with some like pretty good ideas because I'm coming off this like nice
Yeah.
quaint
Hmm.
kind of hiatus.
Yep. So what about um schedule? Do you keep like a schedule? And is there time for like creative? Is there time for, because you're running a business too, right?
Mhm.
You're a successful businesswoman. It's you are your business, your talent. So do you leave time for like the administrative stuff? I mean, how do you juggle all this because of the creative job? You don't want to waste, or you don't want busy things to obstruct like what's producing for you, right? Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, the creative stuff comes way more naturally to
Hmm.
me than like I like the idea of the business stuff, but like the administrative stuff does not
Hmm.
come the most natural to me. I really have to like force myself to do it, kind of push myself to do it. Thankfully, I do have a business manager who helps kind of go through like
Okay.
contracts and negotiations and all that stuff, which that helps me a ton because like just even taking a step back from like having to review a contract like
Yeah.
that's such a time suck in a way that I like my brain I have to like get into the mentality to do something like that.
At the beginning, you probably had to do a lot of
Oh, I
juggling of
had
that, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So and I'll also say I'm very fortunate because so my husband, he works for Crocs and
Okay.
he does their collaborations there. And so he understands from like the inside, like kind of more of the contracts, like what how to do a deal memo and a deal structure. So in the
Yeah.
beginning stages, like he was really helpful to me to be like, okay, this is how you would want to like set up if you're going to work with a brand, you want like design fee versus like a royalty based fee versus then like okay now you need a marketing budget to be able to create a campaign for this. Like I had no idea about any of that stuff, so like he was really helpful. I have a lot of friends in the industry which thankfully they've all been very generous with their time and have helped me kind of figure out how to like structure the business.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things I had to kind of figure out on my own, like how to now I make money from posting on social media. Like that was a world that I never really knew. And also it's like I don't really have a ton of people that I'm like, hey, like what are we charging for this? Like
Right. Yeah.
it's thankfully like I'm trying to be very transparent about it. And the few people I know like doing this similar like space, they're also pretty transparent about it. But a lot of the things with business is like you just kind of have to figure it out. And this isn't really like, there's not really much of a blueprint. Like, I don't really know many other people that are like doing
Mm.
this exact job. So I'm just trying to like figure it out as I go. And thankfully, like the partners that I work with are super nice and like patient with me and have taught me things along the way.
And the people in the industry really, at least from my experience, footwear, outdoor, like love what they do. So,
For sure.
of course, it's business and people need to make money, and but they're in it for the reasons that you're in it, probably, right? Like
Yeah.
it's true. At the end of the day, it's like a passion. You don't go into those jobs generally because you're going to get rich.
Yeah, no, for
um,
sure. I mean,
uh,
that's like the best thing about it is like everyone's really kind and like especially within footwear and like this just the sportswear outdoor industry, like some of the nicest, most genuine people like that I've met from working on projects and then have become like some of my closest friends.
mm,
So I'm really glad that you know, because like I think the fashion industry versus like kind of where I sit in the fashion industry are a little bit different.
mhm.
And I like that I'm adjacent and kind of like I touch into fashion. I've done stuff within high fashion, but the space that I really find myself in is more within like the footwear community and
Yeah.
the outdoor community. So I
Well,
love that.
they are crossing over big time in the last few years.
Oh
That
my God,
that
yeah.
is for sure. So, last couple questions. Um, what's next, and what's the dream collaboration, or can you tell me that? Is there something like,
Ooh,
um, yeah, anything you're like, oh, that person would be cool to work with, or that
well,
brand,
I probably, to be
or a
honest,
product, maybe a product.
I was gonna say it's probably less of like a brand. I mean, there's obviously like brands that of course I would love to work with that I haven't yet. And but I almost find myself going more into like spaces and going into things that I haven't really explored a ton. So more recently, I've kind of been more into like the museum space,
Okay.
which is always really funny to me because like it's always such a pull and push with my work where it's like, is it design? Is it art? And I'm always kind of like, it sort of sits in between both of those things. And I do want to explore a little bit more of the art space. Like I've definitely sat within design for like the products and stuff that I've created. I'm less about I don't really want to create a brand. I don't really want to like scale the one of one pieces that I'm making.
Okay.
I'm more so trying to find like creative ways of like doing what I do within other industries. And so last year I had an exhibition in the Anchorage Museum in Alaska. And I
Wow.
got to go to the museum and I basically went like treasure hunting, like how I used to do at Reebok,
Mhm.
at the back in the back halls of this
Oh, wow.
museum
Yeah.
and
Cool.
take all stuff from like previous exhibitions and I use that as a part of my exhibition. And so I kind of feel like there's something there where I like could go work with like brands or like in galleries and that kind of stuff and take like whatever it is and make something, whether that's like for a store display like from the back houses of like like a store or like at a museum, go into their back rooms and kind of create
Mhm.
something. So I sort of think the dream would be something like that, but like my ultimate dream would be to make a children's museum where it's like a very like
Oh, okay.
experimental kind of like touch and feel. Like I loved going to like the science museum when I was little, like in places where you could get your hands dirty as a kid and like just give kids a pair of scissors and like don't be too scared. Like that's that's sort of the goal,
Right.
you know?
Oh, it's funny because I thought you were gonna go down this road. Like I asked you a dream product or a dream brand, and you tell me about like the coolest dump or recycling plant in the world that you really want to explore.
I mean, that too, yeah. I also, you know, I think about this often, but I kind of find that like one of these days, I think I'm gonna inadvertently invent something and I think I'm closer to it than I realize is what all I have to say is like I don't have any specific thing to
Hmm.
share, but I'm mostly like there's something within like fashion or design or something that hasn't been invented yet that I feel like for some reason I'm going to stumble upon inventing it because every once in a while I create something that I'm like this is a little too functional and like why isn't this a product yet?
Yeah.
So I could see myself like accidentally inventing something.
Well, I really appreciate your time. It took more of it than I expected. I thought we were going to fly through this, but it's really fascinating to learn your backstory, and the creative process too is really interesting to me because I can't draw a straight line with a straight edge. So it's really
So
fascinating. Just words have always been my thing, but so to hear how you come at it is quite interesting to me. So I really do appreciate the time. It's fun getting to know you. Where can people follow you and see your stuff? Do you have any exhibitions coming up or cool stuff coming out from collabs? Anything you want to share before we go?
yeah. So, well, Nicole McLaughlin, I guess, on Instagram, and then
Yeah.
Upcycle on TikTok. I have the Instagram or the TikTok handle Upcycle, which is pretty cool.
Wow. You
Um,
got early
I
early
did get
doors,
in
as they
there a
say.
little
Yeah.
early,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice work.
Um, and then, I mean, I'm always teaching workshops,
Yeah.
so I would say look out for if I post on like stories on Instagram. If you're interested in learning how to upcycle, like I love teaching. That's a big part of what I do, and so plan to do many more upcycling workshops, so please join in for that. And then I have some fun speaking engagements coming up over the next few months. So if you want to learn more about what I'm saying, then
Mhm.
you could come see it in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're good at it. The ones I've seen online, they're good. You're
Thank you.
really authentic, and it's quite a story to tell. So
Thank
I
you.
thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. This is so fun.
All right. Take care. Okay. A huge thank you to Nicole for spending an hour with me. I'm always intrigued by people who kind of throw caution to the wind and have a go at what they really truly want to do. And Nicole is certainly one of those people. And it's fair to say it's working out well for her. Having worked myself in the outdoor industry around footwear and apparel professionals for the better part of a decade, I can tell you that there are a lot of people in that industry who are following her closely, looking to see what she might create next. You can follow her as well on social media so you can keep up with what she's putting out. It's fun, really, to see what she creates and how she shares it across social media. She's also a very friendly person to have a chat with, so I appreciate her time. That was fun. That's all for this week. If you want to know more about me and what I do, you can visit my website at twinthievesmedia.com. Thank you for listening. Take care.